Last August, white supremacist groups converged on Charlottesville, Virginia, for a series of public rallies that shocked the world.
A horrific scene in Charlottesville, Virginia, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence and chaos.
These were men who described themselves proudly as fascists and national socialists. But the president blamed both sides for the violence.
You also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
We came back to Charlottesville a year later to ask local residents how much has changed. What happens when a place named one of the happiest cities in America becomes the site of white supremacist terror? Susan Breaux and Alfred Wilson started a foundation last year to honor the memory of 32-year-old Heather Heyer, Breaux's daughter and Wilson's colleague and friend. Heather was one of the locals who came out to protest the neo-Nazis. She was marching through downtown Charlottesville when, according to officials, a man who had demonstrated with the white supremacists plowed his car into a crowd of protesters, killing her.
I never got to see what this painting was. Somebody put a picture here and it's been ruined by the sun, but these weren't for me, these were for Heather. These are new flowers. I'm glad my daughter's death had an impact on people. I just hope it's for the right reasons and the right impact.
What would the wrong reasons or the wrong impact be?
Again, this notion that she was the leader, she was in charge, she was the reason for the march or anything like that. No, that's not the point of this. And she wasn't assassinated, she was murdered. She wasn't assassinated, she was not singled out. So there's a difference. I had people at first trying to compare her to Martin Luther King even. I was like, heck no. Heather wouldn't even agree to that, you know?
We go through these cycles that apparently this has risen up 25, 30 years ago, and then it died down and got quiet and it went away. And now it's risen back up again. And every time people think it's gone away or that it's slowed down, but here we are, and I'm looking back and thinking, wow, this is what my mom or my grandparents actually possibly had to experience and see.
Many of Charlottesville's white residents said they were shocked to see neo-Nazis in their streets. Local activists of color, like Tanisha Hudson, have a different perspective.
Were you surprised that extremist hate groups targeted Charlottesville?
Absolutely not. This is Thomas Jefferson's land. The South is the fabric of the Confederacy. The South is the fabric of slavery. The South is the fabric of Jim Crow. And as much as we want to paint this little picture that Virginia is for lovers, Virginia is for lovers of white people. Virginia has never loved people of color. People like Jason Kessler and Richard Spencer and the Boys of the South or the alt-right neo-Nazi, whatever you want to call them, whatever group name they go by, they continue to want to feel like they're superior to people of color because that's a legacy that's taught at the university. It's a frat boy thing. We go to UVA, this is Thomas Jefferson land, and we continue to have this whitewashed version of Charlottesville. We're not a capital of resistance. We're not the happiest city in the world. We're a segregated city, and this city lives off the heritage of the Confederacy.
Charlottesville is still contesting whether it can actually remove statues of Confederate generals from public parks, a symbolic break with that white supremacist history. Locals were outraged by the city's handling of the August rallies. An independent review found law enforcement officers had failed to stop the violent clashes in the streets or to separate different groups of protesters.
Why did you think that you could walk in here and do a business as usual after what happened on the 12th?
While he originally opposed removing Confederate statues, Charlottesville's previous mayor switched his vote after the violence in August. It wasn't enough.
All right, all in favor? That carries 5-0. Congratulations.
Thank you all.
An ongoing lawsuit has halted the city's effort to remove the statues. Last August, the city covered them with black tarps as a sign of mourning. In February, a judge ordered the shrouds removed. One of the activists who supports removing the statues is Jelaine Schmidt, an assistant professor at the University of Virginia's Religious Studies Department.
Let's go over here.
That's it.
That's it. 1 foot, about 1 foot by 1 foot. Here, I'll put my foot down here for scale here. Yeah. So 14,000 people, the outright majority of the population here at the time of the Civil War, and this is basically the only public memento that we have of that. This land that we're on here used to be a neighborhood that was occupied by black and mixed race homeowners and business owners. These properties were seized by eminent domain by the city. There was no pay, for it, and instead then what was put in place of what used to be a thriving, black and mixed race neighborhood was instead a whites only park. So it was definitely a kind of symbol in public space, of who was in charge.
What were some of the arguments that were being made to keep these statues?
Well, this is history, and you can't undo history, so you just keep it there, or you're trying to efface history. But our counter argument is that these statues were put in the 1920s for the edification of white people and to keep black people in line,
Reverend Phil Woodson is an associate pastor at Charlottesville's First United Methodist Church. He says what happened in August challenged white residents to rethink their assumptions.
Words like fascism and the alt-right and this idea of neo-Nazis was still somewhat foreign to me. But when you talk to vulnerable people, to people of color, to people who are disproportionately affected by our culture and our civic life that is built on white supremacy and that perpetuates white supremacy, it wasn't a surprise to them at all.
What have been some of those steps in your process of grappling with your own privilege or even beginning to see your own privilege in ways you didn't see it before?
Following that first torch rally, there was then a community response to that where we were all out in the park holding up candles. It was almost like Harry Potter. But then hanging from the statue out there was a sign that said, "Fuck white supremacy." And so here I am, I'm going, oh my goodness, such foul language in this moment. I don't know, what are we gonna do? And then I'm thinking about it for a minute, I was like, hold on. Like there were literal Klan members and Nazis here last night saying Jews will not replace us. They were saying, white lives matter, Russia is our friend. They were chanting blood and soil. Fuck white supremacy really needs to be the baseline for everyone in that moment. I have had ancestors who fought for the Confederacy in the Civil War. I'm not responsible for the sins of my great whatever grandfather, but I am responsible for how that has affected me and my family and my position in the world today.
Many locals still haven't done much to address white supremacy, according to Ziona Bryant, a high school student who petitioned the city to remove the Confederate statue.
I've seen a lot of people saying that they felt guilty or they didn't know that it existed, which is really interesting to me because it's always been here. I think that there have been some people who have been trying to come forward and do something. But we constantly say that doing something is better than doing nothing. But a lot of times when you just want to do something carelessly or just recklessly, you can be causing more racial harm to people who are already marginalized. We keep associating white supremacy with just torches and Nazis. And while that causes so much racial trauma and harm to people of color in this community, we have been dealing with this for so long. It's like adding insult to injury, right? There's so much that has been here for so long, and I encourage people of this community to really take a deeper look at what's been going on in ways that they can fight white supremacy in their everyday lives.
How concerned are you about the anniversary of the Unite the Right rally this year?
Am I concerned? A little. Am I worried? No. The more they continue to come here, the more we're going to counter protest. The more they continue to pose a threat to this community, the more we're going to stand up. Like, you can come all you want, but we're not going to back down.